Welcome to Highly Affected by Her Surroundings, the podcast where we reveal how your environment can make or break your day. Hosted by me, Nicole Rowe, owner and lead designer at Our Nixon Interiors. Today's guest is someone that I had the honor and privilege of spending nearly an entire week in Charleston at a women's business strategy retreat. And this is Jameelah Watkins Mallett. And she is the founder and CEO of The Case Collective, a business education and community platform for interior design firm owners, and co-founder of Lauren Wesley Designs, an active residential interior design practice. With more than 2 decades of experience spanning design, business strategy, and leadership, she helps designers build firms that are run with structure, clarity, and intention so they can stop being the bottleneck in their own business. Through her proprietary CASE method, Jameelah equips firm owners with the frameworks to lead with confidence and build something sustainable. Her work sits at the intersection of luxury, education, and transformation, and she's on a mission to remind creative professionals that peace is the goal, not just profit. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is so good to see your face. We just spent some lovely time together in the beautiful Charleston. We got to run a bridge, we got to have good coffee, we got to do a sound bath, all of these things. But please give a little more about yourself and kind of how you got on this journey of interiors.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Nicole. I, I really enjoyed the time that we spent on that retreat. I feel like we've been like, we got to get together. And Kelsey was like, you guys are so similar. You should talk. So I'm so glad to be here and that we were able to connect and talk about what we love.
So when we had met, you had told all of us that you had been a business owner for, since you were a teenager, and you started kind of more in the beauty industry. But what has this journey looked like for you?
Yeah, so I started my entrepreneurial journey when I was 12. And I say 12, it was before that, but 12 is when I started to charge, when I had clients. So I really loved doing hair. But what's funny is in my room, because I am like a proud um, ADHD person, however you want to call it, like I do. Um, I wear it as a badge of honor, and it started early on, obviously undiagnosed. My mom would be like, "Go clean your room and go do this." And I would start decorating my whole room with like different decorations from like past parties and things like that, and just always have a project. She's like, "You always have a project." So, but I also was very enamored with like doing hair. So I would always do my doll's hair and like try to learn how to braid and like do all of that. And one of my neighbors, she actually said, "Hey, I need you to braid my hair to help me with this hairstyle." And then that type of like hair, with hair weave and sew-ins and things like that, I just learned how to do it. And so for me, I've always had that entrepreneurial mindset from a very early age. I'm like, all right, I'm going to charge for this. I'm going to do my friend's hair. This was in middle school. I had flyers and everything like that, putting them on lockers. Um, just like a whole system of like doing hair in my room, having the setup and all of that. And it's really funny. It's people that I did hair in like my childhood bedroom who are now clients on the interior design side. So I've really been blessed to have like this word of mouth marketing throughout my entire business, especially being born and raised in Atlanta. So I have like a lot of roots here. So I started doing hair. I also did makeup, started doing brides, saw how the experience was with my brides, and realized that, I've always loved to design. I've always loved hosting events and things of that nature. So it was like a transition into from doing bridal hair and makeup to doing weddings and events. Um, and we've always, and I had my business partner, Ebony, at the time for that as well. So we wanted to add the interior aspect to it because we both had a passion for it, but we were really rocking and rolling with the events. But then COVID happened, and events could not happen anymore. So we had started the interior aspect of the business late 2019, like doing it officially. And then by the shutdown, that's all that we had. And so we just kept rolling and growing with that. So it's been like I didn't go to school for design, don't have any formal training in it. I'm all self taught. My bachelor's is in economics. So, it's just been something that I've been moving with and growing with. And so, because I'm not formally trained, there was so many bumps and bruises along the way. And I know that there's so many designers out there who don't have formal training, but do have a gift for design, who might also have a gift for, entrepreneurship, that they really need to know the ins and outs of interior design. It's a very specific industry. It's not something you can just fall into without bumps and bruises. And so I created a platform that helped designers who, a lot of them also did go to school, because, we talked about this. The interior design school does not really teach the business aspect of it. So there's something there for everyone to really just learn how to navigate and be in the industry. So I really love to teach and offer my expertise to others and build community. So,
Well, I think all of this shows the grit, right? You were self-taught from a time when you did hair before YouTube tutorials, before TikTok tutorials. Like,
mhm,
yes, I'm sure you had people that were somewhat showing you, but you had to figure it out, and you had to figure it out confidently enough to not only, do it, but these hairstyles are taking hours. So you're with these people for hours. This isn't just a little trim. So you're on and, communicating. But I love the natural transition from the hair, the makeup, the weddings to the events, because you're seeing the details, and then the transition from events
mhm,
to interiors, where I had an event, a wedding, a South Asian wedding coordinator or business owner on last season, and the overlap between her luxury weddings and what we do
mhm.
on a daily basis is really insane.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing about events is you got to take it all down. Interiors, it gets to stay. And so I do love that aspect, because there's a little bit of like, oh, it's like a little grief process of like all of this work. And now we have to pack it all up and send it back.
That
Yeah.
is one way to look at it, right? Because she would go into how many light fixtures they would hang. So you're not only paying an electrician to hang, 12 chandeliers, you're paying them to take them down and then store them somewhere. So that
Yes.
is a lot of coordination. But to transition during the COVID times when interiors blew up, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But it was also one of the hardest times to be an interior designer because of the logistics. So you stepping into the education side now to teach everybody the lessons that
Mm.
you had to learn, because what was hardest for you?
So so I actually, our first project that we had, well, the first project that we had was before the shutdown, and that got us published with like Martha Stewart. It went really far because it was a celebrity client. But that project got us like 3 or 4 projects that happened, like, between February and March, which was, like, right before the shutdown. I was literally in the store with my client when they're announcing the shutdown, and I'm like, "Oh, 2 weeks, we'll be back in runnings, no big deal," and then, like you said, everything not being available, and so that really taught us how to have that, like, deploy that grit again. Like, how are we going to make this happen? How are we going to do it safely? Um, you know, and the thing was, in Atlanta, we were not shut down like other states were shut down. We were, the problem child probably of the pandemic. But luckily, the renovation that we had actively going on, I had a great contractor that spoiled me. I didn't know that all contractors did not operate the way he operated, the way that he has his own project management, his own, back end and support and database. Like, he was so organized and structured. And so I was able to do my part as well. But I quickly learned that all contractors were not like that. And so that's where you got a lot of those bumps and bruises. It was also the sourcing aspect, not understanding markup and like shopping, trade, you think you're going to go to like um, the Crate and Barrels, Pottery Barn, get your discount, and that's that. We didn't know about the whole world of like High Point and going to market and all of that. So left a lot of money on the table. And I do find that a lot of designers still that I talk to today, they just do not shop to the trade, which is something where it's not only great for you as a business owner, but it's also great for your client as well because you can save your client a ton of money, you know, by utilizing trade resources. So that was definitely a challenge. I do find that it's a little bit harder now to run an interior design firm because we did not have AI even back then. AI is changing rapidly right now. And so I actually find it to be a little bit harder now to run a firm than when we first started, even with all the bumps and bruises. Um, but I always tell this story about how we had to replace a $4,000 refrigerator because we had it just delivered. They just delivered it. Nobody was there to receive it. No one was there to inspect it. It looked like when we took it out the box, it had been sitting for 2 months because it was a pandemic, and it looked like somebody had kicked it down a hill.
Well, I think we all definitely learned some of those tough ones of not inspecting an appliance or, kind of realizing what coordination we're responsible for. But I think the biggest thing you said was the contractors, right? You get spoiled early on with a great one, and then you have three or four who you're like, why is this not the same? But you get the same with interiors, where contractors have worked with interior designers that has been a really poor experience.
Mm, mhm. And they don't want to work with designers. You have certain contractors that are like, "I won't work with you unless you have a designer," and then there are some contractors where they're running away from you. So, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I definitely think on the education side that you are doing so well in the business side, but it is teaching and setting a standard for more designers to reach that level of excellence to allow contractors to want to work with us. So I think each,
Mhm.
designer that's doing it appropriately is kind of a check in the good guy box, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's and that's one of the biggest things that I'm now teaching is like how to work within that ecosystem. How to make sure that you are not taking on more liability than you should, according to your expertise. I think a lot of designers try to do it all so that their clients know that they care. But I think it's very irresponsible to take on so much responsibility on a project and then the contractor, it quickly becomes when things hit the fan, everyone points to the designer. The designer is always like the fallback guy, and I think that's because we go into it trying to be the end all be all of the project instead of working within an ecosystem and like everyone coming together as a team. you know I like to, I don't know if you've heard of this before, but integrated project delivery.
No, I haven't.
So that was a way that designers, architects, the client, and the contractor, they all come together. It's actually a different type of contract and everything, and it has its own set of things. But I like the principle of that. They don't really do it anymore, but I love the principle of it because I love the idea of everyone coming together. Like this is the plan. This is who's responsible for what, these are our dates, this is what it is, this is what, laying it out and setting that expectation so that everyone knows how this is going to go. I'm very big on setting expectations with clients, contractors, vendors. I think it just makes it an easier process, less painless.
No, I agree. And when everybody starts on the same page, it helps, and it's not nothing is worse than somebody pointing a finger at somebody else. Like,
Mhm.
no one wants to get thrown under the bus. If something, if an electrical plug is in the wrong spot, let's come up with a way to get it changed before the cabinet guy comes. But
Right.
I think designers have always had, just kind of a shoddy reputation of walking onto a job site in heels, yelling at everybody. I mean, there's the TikToks that show,
Yeah.
everybody hiding from the designer or like diving into the trash can. But so I think we are working working against that, right? So the coming together, starting it appropriately, I even had a meeting yesterday with a potential client, and I was like, we're not doing anything beyond conceptuals till the landscape architect, the contractor, them, and myself sit down and see what's feasible. What can we, what is happening before I design a killer space that then the contractor's like, yeah, you can't put that on a rooftop.
Right, exactly. That's my biggest thing, and I think you get a lot of pushback, from clients sometimes where they're like, "Well," because they're investing a lot, so they're expecting a lot.
Yeah.
That's why, like, setting that expectation of, we can't do our job until we have the full lay of the land. Feasibility is a real thing, and I learned that early on as a designer, where, yes, you wanna come up with all these amazing things, and you sold the client on it just for the contractor to come in and say that absolutely cannot happen. Like, that requires an LVL beam, you can't just move a wall, you can't just do that, early on, and then that's when the trust starts to deteriorate between the designer and the client, or anyone else for that matter, because the due diligence wasn't done. And I think that that's something, like you said, they're funny seeing like everyone running from the designer, but I do hate that. We're doing a summit this summer that's built around renovations and design build, and hearing from contractors and architects and like having that conversation about how you work together, the perspective of an architect, the perspective of an engineer, the perspective of a contractor, just so we can close the gap, because we all need each other in order to do amazing work. You're not going to do amazing work without those entities involved. Nobody can do it by themselves.
I completely agree. And I think starting the conversations with that is really important. But the word feasibility, I love that because that is, we could design literally a mansion on the moon. Like, we could come up with all the things, but that's not going to happen. But you had made a comment earlier about how AI has made our job a little harder. And this is what made me think about the feasibility is yes, we can get into the greatness that you're doing with AI, but it's the clients and some of the others that are, or even some designers that are designing stuff in AI, showing it to, the contractor and the contractor being like, you literally cannot do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it sets unrealistic expectations. But there's a way, like you said, we can get into AI. There's a way to use it to where you can really deep dive preliminarily into feasibility when you're talking about your plans. I think there's a lot of ethics there. We have clients where they'll send us like their AI generated concepts and all that, which is like, okay. Um, it's like, okay. But that's why I feel like what AI has done, it has flattened the middle market. So your client that might have 50,000 to $100,000 to spend on a project is now more of in the DIY space, because they need all of that money. They can't really afford at this time to hire, a really great designer and execute the renovation at the same time. They're going to have to rely on AI. They're going to have to rely on some of your big box stores, that has like the in-house designer. They can build your cabinet, they can do all of that for you. And then you have the luxury market now. So I feel like AI kind of removed the middle market, because I'm somebody, I'll tell all my clients like e-designs and stuff like that. I'm not really keen to that, because I feel like as a designer, um, you can be so much more. Right, and then especially with AI, those types of services are not really needed anymore. You can't charge a premium for it, because literally you can have that done, like, in 10 minutes. It doesn't make sense to charge for things like that when all you're gonna do is utilize A like, it just doesn't feel ethical anymore. That's why I feel like it has to go. And then you have the luxury market where, regardless of AI, these clients don't have the time to fiddle around and tinker with AI. They just need it done right. They need it done, um, not necessarily fast, but in appropriate amount of time. Um,
Efficient.
efficient, yeah. They need efficiency. They need knowledge. Like they value human expertise. So that's why I feel like with interior design, no one's taking our jobs. I just think that we have to really decide where do we want to exist in the industry, because it's fine to be a content creator, do DIY. There's billions of dollars over there, but then there's also millions and billions in the luxury space. But that middle space, I think everybody has to decide where they're going
Yeah,
quickly.
the middle ground is very interesting because I feel like that is where the tension is with so many designers, right? It is that entry level designer or those that do e design where the clients are disappointed in the end, right? It's very hard if they hire a firm to do it or an individual to do it. When you're placing those orders, the scale is off, the colors, like it never feels quite right. Where
Mhm.
AI can be an assistance, but where I'm curious, and I know you have done such a deep dive in this world, but for AI in general, where has it made like the biggest difference in like your day-to-day operations?
So it has been, for me, it's been the back end, like the team structure, really understanding the full build out that it takes. I think the grit matched with AI is powerful. Like, it's a tool at the end of the day. And just like any tool, me with a hammer versus a contractor with a hammer, two different things, right? He's probably going to rock out a lot better than I would with it. Tool nonetheless. So that's how we have to look at it. And I don't really use AI a ton for like any conceptualization or like the creative process, because at that point it becomes very disappointing because the heart, the gift, like the soul of it is just not there. It's a computer at the end of the day. But when we think about things that we should be outsourcing, delegating, structure, you know, actually being able to document your gifts. So a lot of us have been doing things more manually over time. It's something that we can do like with the back of our hand, but the job market right now and the talent that is available to us that we can afford, or the people that we can hire, the landscape is different. The generation is different. And so they need a lot more handhold. I don't want to say hand holding, but they do need more information. And then if you are going to scale, you do need your repeatable processes documented so that, because the job market and the gig economy is so volatile, you don't want to be in a position to where when someone leaves or something happens that you have to start over. So that's kind of where I use AI, is kind of to like build out my infrastructure in my business, make sure that things are documented, make sure that files are cleaned, files are updated, that we don't have like a junkyard of a Google Drive. You know, those are the things that I do. And then for marketing, I do use it to create content. But what I've been doing like this whole week is gathering like past, I used to have a podcast, so getting all that audio, or um past interviews that I've done, content pieces that I've wrote, like just collecting it all so that I can build a brand voice so that my team can execute the marketing on my behalf, and it not sound like AI and it not sound cringy, because I just don't like anything that sounds inauthentic or fake. But at the end of the day, I have to show up visibly online as myself, but you still do need to replicate things, newsletters, drafting campaigns, all of that. It's good for brainstorming for sure.
Well, and those are things that used to take us hours a week, right? And if you can
Mhm.
get that all, if 5 hours of work can get knocked out efficiently in say 30 minutes and you can edit it and give it to somebody else to, handle and it's still your voice.
Yeah.
Like that is
Yeah,
to me I think that is special because it allows us to do what we're really good at and that's what people hire us for.
exactly. So that's, you hit it exactly on the head. For just to wrap it in a bow, I think that AI should be used as a leveraging tool so that you can now get back into like what your gift is, like what it is that people want to work with you for. Because there's so much of an expectation. Designers, we're expected to be content creators now, not just designers. It's like so much. And so we do need to get back to designing, especially if you are going or if you're going to exist in the luxury space. Clients want more out of you now. They want a more high touch experience. They want, that human touch because that's what's missing now, right? So you have to be able to serve your client and be present and really do like a great job.
I had a great conversation with a client recently, and then he was just like, Nicole, I want to talk to you. I want to see you.
Yeah.
And it was someone that I've known for over a decade. We've done 3 houses for. And the same conversation you and I have been having these past few months of scaling bigger, scaling smaller, like where do we fall to still be able to do what we're really good at?
Hmm.
But I think AI has allowed me and it has allowed you to find that comfort zone, but still be efficient and produce amazing work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love connecting with my clients. I didn't like feeling like we had to be all these other places or like that you necessarily have to have like these other people that are kind of barriers to like talking to your clients, communicating with your clients. I'm big on setting expectations with clients, but especially the ones that you've been working with for a long time. You have to provide that service. Relationships are so important. Like I said, my whole business has been word of mouth. Like, and my clients aren't on Instagram, right? So you kind of have to figure out, but you still need that visibility and all of that. So I think AI is helping with that so that we can be in the real world.
No, and I love that, and I think for me as like a human, I started out wanting to be best friends with all my clients. That was the initial, and then I pulled back really dramatically where it was strictly a business relationship. And I feel like they weren't as satisfied at the end, but it was able to like, here's your invoice, here's the process, here's this. But now I'm back in this like more, I don't want to say friendship zone because it makes it feel unprofessional, but it is I want to see you. I want to keep talking to you. Like I don't cringe when you call because you may just talk about, something completely unrelated. But I think as I now am approaching my 40s, I'm confident enough to be like, I can be friends and friendly and grab a coffee with these people. It may not be in the knit and grit of the project, where stuff is getting a little intense, but they want us, they want to hire us, and they want to refer us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that in in this realm of luxury services, because that's what an interior designer, it's a luxury service, right? And luxury, it can mean a bunch of different things, and it's relative. But I think a part of that is the high touch. I think a part of that is getting to know your client. Like one of my first big renovations, she was in my wedding, you know?
No way.
Yeah,
Okay.
like one of my greatest friends, like I built out her house. I did her family's homes. I did her restaurant when she finally opened up her shisha lounge and all of that. So I've been a part of all of these moments, and then there have been times where it does get a little weird because we are friends, but we're also doing business. But I do think I have a theory that friends that start off as business are like the greatest friends because I think that there's just a lot of structure and respect for what you do as opposed to trying to get friends and family to respect what you do. It's a little bit different. So I don't mind making friends with clients because I do feel like those relationships are a lot stronger because that respect is there.
I love that perspective because so many of our friends and family don't fully grasp what we do, right? Like they
Mhm.
see some of the photos, they know that we're stressed, or, like they know that we have to miss certain events because we're, out of state at a project. But I don't think everyone grasps the intensity of it. But if it is that full service client that you've been working with for 2+ years, they see it and they feel it. And like you said, they respect you.
Yeah. No, I love it, and I think it's more fun that way. And, coming back because with Lauren West, we took a little bit of a hiatus. I was working in production. We both were on the show Married to Real Estate on HGTV. But then I took the role as design producer. So we kind of had to go on a hiatus. But now that we are back, it feels really good because we're actively choosing who we want to work with, the type of clients that we want to work with, reaching back to past clients. They're all super excited, that we're back. And we were working kind of behind the scenes on some of our clients, but it just feels good to be back and like work with people who we want to work with. And it is a blessing to be in a position to be selective, with the type of clientele. But I've just seen so much with coaching designers that if you have faith, whatever your belief system is, it does require an immense amount of faith and self respect to say no to projects that don't align with your values or like who you want to work with, to say no to that, even though it could pay the bills, for a month or whatever. You don't want that project to be looming when the dream project comes, because now you're like, oh, what I gotta figure this out and deal with this, and then you don't have that space to give it to the project and the client that is really in alignment with who you are. So I think that's going to be my thing. It's hard for designers to accept that when you're just starting out, saying, oh, be selective, yeah, must be nice, but it's like, if this is your second career or your side hustle right now, use your main job as an opportunity to allow you to be selective, like be very intentional about who you want to be and show up as in the marketplace, and go for that. Don't just take any and everything, that comes across.
I mean, I love that perspective of it because the other side is take everything, learn everything, make mistakes, kind of get some cash in the bank. You're not charging that much, but giving yourself the grace and the trust that the right projects will come, which for me, even, I'm 8+ years in, and that's hard when you see dollar signs on a project, but the person might kind of be an ass, or the style isn't what you want, or you won't be able to do what you need to do to make it like worthy of your stamp. It's hard.
Yeah. And that's the point. I mean, your portfolio is everything. It's really it's the first thing that people see, right? So if you're going to take projects that you'll never get to photograph and you got a little bit of money from it, it's not really worth it. As opposed to, like I said, my first project got me 4 projects, right? And I didn't get paid the most on it, but the client was collaborative and we put things in place so that it was mutually beneficial for all of us, especially with him being like a celebrity and everything else. And so it was a very strategic move. So my advice to designers is to seek people who are willing to collaborate, who respect what you do, respect the vision, might not have all the money, but it might be something that's exciting where you are able to exercise your muscle and really show what you're able to do. That is better than just taking a project that is not in alignment, that is chaotic, that is whatever. You spend the money, it's gone in a day because you had bills. And so it was like done. Like it didn't move the needle anywhere,
Yeah.
as opposed to actively seeking out collaborators when you're early on. Because you can still learn a lot, but that's more of a safe environment than running into these projects that are just a mess.
Well, and it starts with, developing relationships, putting yourself out there, trying to get yourself in the environment to meet these right people, because that's not always easy. In Atlanta, yes, you've been there your whole life, but Atlanta's huge.
Yes.
I know I lived in Atlanta for 5 years or so, and, I had my pocket. I was West Midtown and then the Georgia Tech campus. Like, occasionally we went to Buckhead to go shopping or the bars, but coming back as an adult, you realize the communities are tight-knit and the place is huge, whether you're inside the perimeter, outside the perimeter, down south, or you're, kind of Vinings area, like, the city's huge, and to figure out the areas and the vibe and the people,
Right.
that's not easy.
It's not easy, but with all the information that we have now, And even asking, going back to AI, asking AI to help you to get clear on the type of client that you want to serve. Being bold about how much money you actually want to make. Like, what is your number to walk away from your corporate job? What does that look like? Reverse engineer that, to figure out how much you need to make in a year. And then also looking at, um, asking AI to help you to conceptualize the type of client that you want to work with. Who do you vibe with the best? Because if that connection is there, it feels exciting, it feels invigorating, and you're less likely to burn out. So getting clear on that. And I tell people, a wealthy client is not always at a country club. They might be at the Beltline in Atlanta. They might be, there's different types of people. There's different types of luxury clients, different types of wealthy clients, different types of people that can afford your services. So figure out who they are and where they are and, put yourself out there in front of them.
I love that. Okay, I want to jump in briefly to what I actually knew of before I knew you, which is Case Collective. I would love for you to tell people kind of why it started, what it does, like what it's doing for the community, and kind of what you have upcoming. Because, like I said, I've had friends attend it in the past. They raved about it, said how amazing all of it is. And then I got to meet you later and, put two and two together. But congratulations on it first. But please, kind of do a deep dive.
Thank you. Thank you. So the Case Collective is it's our business strategy, community, and education platform. It started off as the Case Conference, and I always knew, like, before, Ebony and I, that's my business partner, and just everything that all the bumps and bruises, like, we should really have like a little class or something to just like help newer designers understand what it means to get into the industry and to stay in the industry so that they don't have to suffer unnecessarily. And so that was something we talked about, kind of tucked it away. But then I was like, I want to do this. And it really was supposed to be just like in a room, like small room, couple designers, maybe like 10 people or whatever. But I always think so big, and I just hit up my event planner. She's the one that did my wedding and like my marketing and partnerships. Um, Girly that I always work with. She's any event or anything that I've done, she's always been there. And I'm like, all right, I want to do this. And then it grew into this whole thing. And our first year, it was great. We had Egypt Sherrod was our keynote. We had Erica Ward. We had Kimberly Selden from Business of Design, which that's an amazing platform as well. And it was great. And what people loved about it was that it was not surface level education, because I think, I talked to you about the lunch and learns. Like, I'm not anti lunch and learn, but I kind of am in a way, just because we are grown people that have kids and families and everything. So if I'm stepping out to learn something, I need to learn something like quickly. I need you to give me the meat and potatoes so I can go back to my life and, do the things, right? So I value people's time a lot, and I take it very seriously, people's education. And so, I was saying no fluff before ChatGPT was saying no fluff, but I had like a no fluff policy. And so it grew. We did year 2, and it grew exponentially. Like, we quadrupled attendance in the first year, because the first year nobody really knew what it was, right? And there were people that registered and trusted, and I did my outreach and did what I needed to do, and it was amazing. Year 2 was even more amazing. We added ambassadors, and just started to bring the community together, because I saw how it brought everyone together, where it's not competition. That's the biggest thing. I feel like the Case Collective, people see it as kind of an anomaly in a way, because there's no gatekeeping, no one is pushed out. I originally did start it to empower designers of color, because we are underrepresented in this industry, underrepresented in a lot of different industries. Um, but in this climate, I still want to empower designers of color. I always will. But in this climate, I just feel like anything that reads even the slightest, like, as divisive, I wanna stay away from it because I think that we're all stronger together, and, allyship is important and all of that. So, really, the collective is just that. So, we went from the Case Conference to the Case Collective, and the Case Collective is everybody, and lifting up underrepresented designers, whether you are, in Montana or whether you're, in the country of South Carolina in a trailer park, it doesn't matter where you come from. We want you to know that you are welcome, that you are included, and that we want you to win and we want you to support. We want to support you, and we want to support each other. So we're getting ready for year 3 of the conference. It's going to be at the Hotel Phoenix in on October 1st through the 3rd. And we have the summit coming up that's virtual. And then we have our retreat that's going to be early February of next year. So I'm really excited about it. And I mean, it's been amazing. And we're building out the Principal Circle platform. So that's our educational platform where we do monthly calls, monthly mindset calls. You have your business strategy modules and resources. Everything that you need to kickstart your business is there. So
Well, I know it's helping so many people. And I mean, it's, a hot topic. And I know we're going to release this right before High Point. So can you tell people where they can find you and some of the Case Collective at High Point?
yes, we have. So I am doing a workshop with Marie Cloud with the DAA, um, Diversity Advocate Alliance. I
Yes.
hope that is the
Yes.
acronym. Yes. I'm co-leading a workshop with Marie Cloud from Indigo Pruitt. That's going to be on that Monday. Sunday, I'll be with Regina Andrews, Detroit for a panel discussion. And then on Sunday, we also have a private event with iCults that we're doing for the Case Collective. So I want everybody to, stay tuned for that. That's going to happen on Sunday at 5 p.m. And so we're going to be making a really big announcement there. And so I want everybody to be there. I hope you're able to make it as well. I know everybody's going to be everywhere, but I hope you're able to make it.
Yeah. So where can people follow along to get all these updates before they go, or just to reach out to you and connect more, or sign up for Case Collective?
So you can follow us on Instagram at thecasecollective.co is our Instagram. We are also going to be launching our High Point Market Guide as well. So we'll have an itinerary of all the things happening at High Point, and that's going to be released probably next week. And then you can also sign up for our newsletter as well. So that's the link in our bio to sign up for our newsletter. We send out updates all the time. And we also have a private Instagram chat. If you love to have conversations, it's a really nice casual space where people are just asking for resources and things like that. So if you want to join, follow us at thecasecollective.co, send us a DM and say, put me in the chat, and we'll put you in the chat.
I love all of this. I love your transparency. I love your just desire to connect and share. It's been super fun to, kind of be on this journey with you. And I know that we'll see each other at High Point. I'm definitely putting some of those dates in my calendar. I am actually also doing a panel with Gray Space Interiors and Antonio De Loach Designs at Regina Andrew as well on, I think it's Wednesday. It might be 2 or 3 o'clock. So definitely get registered for that if you're listening to this. It's a fun way. I think they're doing cocktails and stuff afterwards. So High Point will be a blast. But thank you for showing up today and doing this with me. It's so good to see your face again. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Highly Affected by Her Surroundings. I truly appreciate you taking the time to join us today. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, please rate and review the podcast. It helps others discover the show, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. For more behind-the-scenes content and design inspiration, follow us on social media. You can find me, Nicole, at Nixon Interiors, and the podcast at Highly Affected by Her Surrounding. We'll be sharing updates, sneak peeks, and exclusive offers you won't want to miss. Plus, if you want a recap or more details from today's episode, you can find the show notes at arnixoninteriors.com under the Highly Affected by Her Surroundings tab. Once again, thank you for your support, and I can't wait to connect with you on social. See you next time.